Howdy, y'all, and welcome. Hope everybody's doing well out there so far. Let's go and get into what we can expect this upcoming winter season. Now, first, as a disclaimer, please keep in mind that we cannot forecast the future, so please take this forecast with a grain of salt, as anything over a week out's virtually impossible to predict. And I'm sure y'all want me to stop telling y'all my predictions. Well, that's just too bad, because it doesn't matter what you think, because us weathermen can get it wrong and still keep our jobs. And I know it's so shocking that us weather people can get it so wrong. So make sure to rely on your local meteorologist and National Weather Service for further guidance this upcoming winter season, because there's going to be a lot of clickbait and fear mongering out there, because winter models are pretty extreme usually, because one model will show 30 inches one day for a winter storm that's over a week out. The next run will show 10 inches. Then the actual event occurs and you get really nothing. You just get rainfall and maybe some little ice pellets. So we definitely keep that in mind. I'll try not to do any sort of fear mongering here or any clickbait. But again, make sure you go follow your local meteorologist and National Weather Service, as they will guide you in the right direction this upcoming winter season. Now let's go ahead and get into what we could expect this upcoming winter season. And to take a look at that, we're going to take a look at our ENSO pattern, which is basically La Niña or El Nino. La Niña is colder waters, El Nino is warmer waters. Now last year we were in an El Nino phase, and this year it's looking like we're going to be in another La Niña phase, which is a 71% chance and persist all the way into March of next year. As you can see, we're heading into more of a weaker to moderate La Niña, and then we're going to head out of that as we head into the spring months and into the summer months. Now, keep in mind, with El Nino emerging in the springtime, we could come in on a pretty significant severe weather season. Reed Timmer has pointed out that we could come in on a 2011 style severe weather season, even though this year was pretty extreme as far as severe weather goes. Now, of course, I will break that down once we get closer into the springtime. But for right now, let's go ahead and break down this La Nina winter. As you can see, cold waters out here in the Pacific, down by the equator. We can see it's below that El Nino and La Nina threshold. Definitely going to be in a La Nina winter this year. As you can see, the models are indicating that as we head into December, definitely going to be in a La Nina winter. Now, y'all are probably confused. ENSO, La Nina, El Nino, what the heck does this even mean? Well, last year you can see we were in an El Nino pattern, which means a low pressure up here by the northern Pacific, which means wetter conditions down in the southern half of the country and drier conditions up here in the Midwest and warmer conditions up in the Northwest, which leads to atmospheric rivers in California, by the way. Now, this year is just the opposite of that. We have a high pressure up here in the northern Pacific, means drier conditions down in the southern half of the country and wetter and cooler conditions up here in the northern half, which could mean a result in a polar vortex, which we will break that down here in a little bit. Here's an illustration of the La Nina and how that all works. Of course, you got the trade winds, and it's actually warmer in Australia when they are in La Nina. Now, here is previous La Ninas as far as temperatures go in La Nina. We can see the most recent La Nina was back in 2022-2023 season. We can see it was pretty warm in the eastern half of the country and cold out west. And of course, this changes with every La Nina that we have. And I'll throw in an investment term here, which is sunk cost fallacy, which means previous events don't indicate future events, basically is what that means. So definitely each La Nina is different every single time. And we can see the precipitation as well. Mainly the southeast and southwest, typically pretty dry during winter. And the northern half of the country is typically pretty soggy and snowy. We can see the average snowfall actually for a weak La Nina, which we will come into this year. The northwest and north central part of the country is going to be coming in on a lot of snowfall, while the southwest, southeast, and a little bit of the Midwest could come in on below average snowfall. Now this will change, obviously, of course. And the average snowfall for a strong La Nina, you see less snowfall in the northeast and southwest. I don't think this is going to happen. And as we can see in all La Nina patterns, we can see strong and weak. Basically, we can see the northwest and north central is going to be dealing with a lot of snow, while the southwest and really the southern half of the country is going to be dealing with really little snow this year. And here's the previous ENSO years. See, dating back to 2022, that was our most recent La Nina. We can see the most recent neutral patterns back in 2020, and our most recent El Ninos back in 2023, last year. They don't have it on here for some reason, but our most recent El Nino was last year. Here's a prediction of how much snowfall we could be getting in on. Could be coming in on well below average from the northeast down to the southwest. They're more in line with the stronger La Nina. We can see the northwest and north central getting in on the most snowfall. Euro is really in line with that as well. So definitely be aware this canon will change. So let's go ahead and get into the precipitation outlook as we head into the winter months. And take a look at this. We're going to take a look at the Euro seasonal outlook. Now, keep in mind, meteorological fall lasts all the way into November, and meteorological winter lasts from December all the way into February. So keep that in mind. We'll take a look all the way out into December first, and then show y'all the Climate Prediction Center's outlook, and then we'll show y'all from December all the way into February and March. Now, as we push into September and October, we can see much below average precipitation for much of the southeast and southern half of the country, while the northwest is getting in on well above average precipitation. As we head into December, we can see this is going to change drastically as the northwest and more of the Ohio Valley region is going to be getting in on well above average precipitation, while the southern half of the country is obviously going to be still remaining pretty dry because we're in La Nina. As we can see, just this from October into November of this year, we can see that much of the northwest and northeast is going to be above average, while down there by Texas, y'all are going to be pretty dry. Now, equal chances means that you can get in on either both above or below average, just depends. So keep that in mind as well. Now, as we take a look past December, we can see that much of the Ohio Valley down into the Tennessee Valley is going to be dealing with well above average precipitation, as well as up here in the northeast and northwest, while the southern half of the country is still going to remain pretty darn dry as we head into February. Now, as far as March goes, we'll have to take a look at the CANSIPS model, and we can see that really the northern half of the country is going to be above average, except for up here in the northwest, which y'all want to start to dry out as we head into the spring months, because it's looking like it's going to be an El Nino spring, as well as down here in the southern half of the country could be dry as well. As we take a look at the Climate Prediction Center's seasonal precipitation outlook from January all the way into March of next year, we can see that southern half of the country is going to be dry, of course, typical La Nina. And we can see the northern half of the country is going to be above average. So definitely could be coming in on what could be some blizzards over here. Keyword there is could in the Ohio Valley, as well as some record snowfall up here in the Mountain West. Now I say keyword there is could because it might not happen. Who knows? We don't know the future, as I said earlier. We haven't had a blizzard since 1978 here in the Ohio Valley. That was a record amount of snowfall that year. I wasn't born yet, so I don't really remember it, but here's what happened during that year, of course. And I know in Iowa last year y'all got in on a blizzard, so definitely could come in on a lot of snowfall up here in the northern half of the country, while the southern half is going to be coming in on well below average precipitation. And that's typical of a La Nina pattern as shown here, so definitely prepare for what could be a wet winter up here in the north and a dry winter down south. Now, I'm sure y'all are curious as to what the temperatures will be, since we are going to be coming in on a lot of precipitation in the northern half of the country, which could mean a lot of snowfall and a dry winter down south. We'll have to take a look at the polar vortex and see if we're going to be dealing with that this year. And here's what the polar vortex is. It's basically a large area of cold air up there in the northern hemisphere and brings all that cold air down south. Now, there is two layers to this, which is the tropospheric layer and the stratospheric layer. The tropospheric layer is what we feel here at the surface. Stratospheric layer is right above that. And here is how all of that works. Basically, you have a stronger polar vortex. That cold air is contained up there, but if anything affects it, it weakens it down, and that polar vortex starts moving into the lower 48. Basically, you got to have higher pressure up there in the poles, and you got to have warmer air affecting it, and that's how that polar vortex gets disrupted. Now, of course, during El Nino phases, typically keeps that polar vortex stable, keeps it up there. But during La Nina, we typically have that polar vortex reach down here to the lower 48. And one of the reasons behind weakening down the polar vortex is the QBO phases, basically stratospheric winds, but the definitions here of what this basically means. The main takeaway is that the QBO is deeply connected to the atmosphere. It helps with that tropical forcing, including the ENSO. Could say that it also help with the communication between the ocean and polar vortex. It basically pushes that tropical air up into the polar regions and basically weakens it down. And that's how we get in on the polar vortex. Here's basically what this is meaning. At least that's what I'm taking from this course. We can see that it's basically gravity waves, basically what it is. Here's the historical QBO phases. Go from east to west, east to west. See, right now we're in the westerly phase, of course. And here is a graphic showing just this, the reds and blues, positive and negative. Another factor in weakening down that polar vortex is our solar phase. I know this sounds crazy. I thought it was crazy too when I read this, but apparently we're going to be dealing with maximum solar activity phase coming out of a minimum. We can see what this means. Basically, maximum means a lot of sunspots, which means more auroras and solar flares. We had a lot of auroras earlier on this year, which was pretty interesting. You can see in my follow me on these socials thing up here, those are some auroras that we could see this year. We see we're coming out of 24 and into the maximum 25. And here's all those solar phases, what that could mean. Now here I put why this occurs. Basically, there was a study done that looked into the solar cycle QBO, which is stratospheric winds, and the polar vortex shows the combination of a solar maximum event, which will come into this year, and a westerly phase of the QBO, which most favorably disrupts the polar vortex, and which we have both of those this year, which means we could come in on a polar vortex. So that's something to look forward to, I guess, if you are a winter lover. But if you don't like winter, well, unfortunately, it's looking like we could, keyword there's could, come in on a polar vortex. Now, there's something that could throw a monkey wrench in the polar vortex in a bad winter, which is our NAO phase, which is basically the North Atlantic Oscillation. We have two phases, the negative and positive. Negative phase is basically what you want to see if you love winter. If you hate winter, you don't want to see that, of course. But if you love winter, you don't want to see the positive phase, as basically during negative phase, you have the high pressure up here in Greenland and a low pressure down here in the Atlantic, which basically causes that bad weather. And it's just the opposite with the positive phase, which has low pressure up here, containing that cooler air up there in the North Pole. And you have that high pressure in the Atlantic, which maintains a sort of normal winter in a sense. We can see as we head into October, November, and December, we're going to be in sort of a stronger, more positive NAO phase, as well as in December, January, into February. So unfortunately, it's looking like we could come in on a strong positive NAO with a weak La Nina. And this could throw a monkey wrench in the plans. Now, this can and will change, of course. There is two sides to the ENSO pattern. There is a central and eastern Pacific La Nina. Basically, if you have an eastern influence to the La Nina, basically you get the negative phase of the NAO because you have more of a trough coming through. But if you have the central Pacific phase in play, then you have more of the positive NAO. So definitely could change, of course. We could change out of this strong phase and more into of a negative phase. So definitely, if you're a winter lover, keep this in mind. But as of right now, we are currently dealing with this positive phase, unfortunately, and this could result in a complicated winter. It means one week we could see negative temperatures, and the next week we could see 70-degree temperatures, for example. So definitely keep that in mind this coming winter season. Now, here's what this means if you are confused. Eastern Pacific, it's closer to the North Atlantic Ocean, which basically affects the North Atlantic Oscillation. That's why the Eastern Pacific La Nina has an effect on our NAO, of course. And the Central Pacific is further away, so it has less of an impact. And as you can see here, just this from November all the way into May, Eastern Pacific La Ninas have more of an impact. But again, this can and will change, so keep this in mind, as the Eastern Pacific has more of an influence over the NAO than the Central Pacific does. Now, this could result in some sudden stratospheric warming events. This happened back in 2021, and there's a lot of similarities to the 2021 winter season and this upcoming winter season. Say the La Nina has more influence in sudden stratospheric warming events. That's why the NAO is right now positive, but will most likely turn negative as we head into the winter months. As we are into October, and this is well out into the future, we can see the surface temperature anomalies following sudden stratospheric warming events, and the snowfall that typically occurs as well. Above average snowfall, of course, in the eastern half of the country. And below is an image that shows typical winter pressure anomalies over the western hemisphere for each ENSO phase. Third example, of course, shows the best pressure pattern to weaken down that polar vortex to start a sudden stratospheric warming event, which happened back in 2021. Now, to have a sudden stratospheric warming event, you have to have the QBO basically turn east to west or west to east, vice versa, of course. And you have to have a clear negative NAO pattern to do so as well, which could actually happen. And we actually had this happen back in 2022 as well, which was a bomb cyclone, was a pressure change of at least 24 millibars within a 24-hour period. It's basically what's needed to meet that criteria. And here is the temperatures that occurred back at the end of January that year in 2022. So now that we know that we're going to have a potential, keyword there's potential, polar vortex this upcoming winter season, let's go ahead and take a look at our temperature anomalies. Now we're going to do what we did with the precipitation. We're going to go from September all the way into December, and then from January all the way into March. As we can see, as we head into September and October, really above average for really much of the country. Really above average for really much of the country as we head into the month of December. And as we can see here in the Climate Prediction Center, really the same story. Much of the country is going to be well above average, which is very unusual. Now, this can will change, of course, but mainly I think this is probably due to that positive NAO in effect from October all the way into December. And that's going to change as we head into the winter months. And as we can see from December all the way into February, this is going to change. You can see we're going to have some potential cool air up here in the northwest and really remaining the same here on the Euro seasonal. Take a look at the cantips in March. We can see drastic differences in these. Let's go ahead and take a look at this as well. It's drastic differences between this and the Euro. You can see cooler than normal temperatures up here in the northern part of the country as we head into October, as well as in the eastern part of the country. Changes as we head into November. December, drastic change. February, still remaining cold. The northern half. Southern half, of course, above average. Head into March, of course. Heading into the spring months, so of course we're going to be a little bit above average. And of course, it's subject to change, so keep this in mind, as both the Kinsips and the Euro are showing different things, so that's definitely pretty interesting. Now, I'm more in line with the Kinsips as far as the temperatures go, but I'm more in line with the Euro seasonal when it comes to the precips, so keep this in mind this upcoming winter season. And as we can see, the Climate Prediction Center is more in agreement with the CANSIPS model, as the Northwest is going to be below average, while the Southeast, Northeast, and Southwest is going to be well above average. Now, this is subject to changes, I always say. We could have that polar vortex stretching down towards the south as we head into the winter months, although we head into October, November, and December, could come in on above average temperatures, mainly due to that positive NAO, but as we head into the winter months, it's going to be starting to get colder out, obviously, because thinking more of that negative NAO is going to take hold, along with this weaker La Niña, which could result in a potential, keyword there's potential, polar vortex. So basically, prepare for what could be a very surprising winter, as we could have a late start to the winter season because we have a positive NAO in effect over there in the northern Atlantic. And this could change as we head into the winter months, as this could flip from positive to negative, and we could come in on sudden stratospheric warming and a polar vortex potentially. Keyword there's potentially, because this is well out into the future. We can't predict the future, unfortunately. That's why us weathermen are always wrong, of course. But we take a look at the Farmer's Almanac. Basically, prepare for cold and snowy conditions if you live amongst the Ohio Valley. If you live up here in the Northwest, prepare for some cold and snowy conditions. But really, what I would expect is well above average precip over here in the northern half of the country, while the southern half is going to be well below average. I'm more in the line with the Climate Prediction Center than I am with the Farmer's Almanac, but y'all can trust either one, as really it's just like throwing a stone into the ocean. You don't know where it's going to go and how deep that ocean is, because really, weather is unpredictable and we can't predict it. So I'm more in line with what the Climate Prediction Center is saying. Prepare for what could be a pretty soggy winter if you live up here in the northern half. Prepare for a dry winter if you live down here in the southern half. And prepare for what could be a very chilly winter, as that polar vortex could, keyword there is potentially, stretch down towards the south this coming winter. So definitely prepare for what could be a pretty surprising winter. Make sure you pack that safety kit with you if you're heading out. Be careful on the roads if you have to head out on the roads. Don't head out if you don't have to. If you have to, please be careful, like I said earlier. Make sure you button up that house as well, as wintertime is coming up. Here's what the warnings and advisories mean. Basically, blizzard warning means take action now, as well as the winter storm warning. Blizzard warning means do not travel. Winter storm warning means you can travel, but be careful. Winter weather advisory basically means the same thing as well. And they forgot to include winter storm watch for some reason, but here's the definition of that. It basically means 50% confidence in meeting warning criteria within the next 12 to 48 hours. And of course, I will have bread and milk alerts issued when winter storms do occur. Bread and milk warnings mean go get it now. Bread and milk watch means you can go get it if you want to go get it. Be on alert to go get it. Advisory means that you can do so if you want to. You don't really have to. Now here's the blizzard of 78. Now we haven't had a blizzard in a long time. That's why I said early on in the video that we could come in on a blizzard here in the Ohio Valley, but I doubt it. Can happen, but I doubt it. Now, the last time we had significant snowfall here in the Ohio Valley was back in 2004. We had over 24 inches within 3 days here in southern Indiana. So that was the last time we had significant snowfall here. Now, if we get any snowfall here at the Williams Weather Headquarters, I will be out there reporting on it. The drone up, and I'll be using the go Ryan Hall meter thing. I'll be showing you all the winter conditions here. Now, I know the terminology used in today's video was pretty complex. I'm sorry about that, but basically, it's going to be a pretty surprising winter, as it's looking to be a late start to the winter season. Keep that in mind. And once we head into the winter months, it's looking like winter is going to start to show its wrath, as we're going to be flipping from a positive NAO to a sort of a negative NAO which basically means we're going to be coming into a very sucky winter. As far as snowfall goes, expect a lot of snowfall in the northern half of the country, but the southern half definitely could be coming in on well below average precipitation, could be coming in on some drought conditions. So definitely prepare for that. And make sure you prepare your house for this upcoming winter season. And if you have to head out on the roads, please be careful. And if you don't have to head out, please don't do so. Use your common sense, of course. So I hope you all enjoyed today's weather forecast. Please like and share the video if you haven't done so already. So more folks informed about the weather. Leave me some feedback in the comment section down below. As feedback helps provide either viewer better and more informative content in the future. And also subscribe, bell notifications turned on so you never miss an upload, because at Here Wins Weather we try to make weather forecasting fun and informative. So until next time, appreciate all y'all for watching. Stay safe and stay warm this upcoming winter season. And until next time, never stop forecasting.